Okay.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know this is very sudden, but we are going live and going to have a little conversation with John Eisen, who's the lead actor from my new film, Free by Noon. Again, this wasn't planned. This was just decided 30 minutes ago that we're going to go live. And luckily, uh, John agreed to do this. But I think I'm going to do a little bit more of these kind of discussions so that you can familiarize yourself with the cast and the crew and everything. And that's it. So this is new to me too. I haven't done this, and I feel very awkward being in front of camera. And as I said, I think
You're doing great.
yesterday.
You're
Oh,
doing
thank you,
great.
sir. Thank you. Being in front of camera is mortifying. It's so hard. I don't know how these guys do it. So anyway, without further ado, let me introduce you to the lead actor from my little film, John Nyson. Here we go. Hi, John. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you for having
Good.
me.
Of course, looking good as always. See the difference between when you cut from a director to the actor. You see, like it's easily visible. But so anyway, so let's get started this with this conversation. And so tell me a little bit about yourself. And so for those of us who don't know much about you.
Okay. Well, I'm originally from the Midwest, Minnesota, a city called Minneapolis and St. Paul, the Twin Cities, big theater hub. And fun fact, the Twin Cities actually have the second biggest amount of stage space in the United States after New York City. And so I grew up in an area where the arts were really encouraged, whether it was music or acting, painting, all of it, and everybody did it. Athletes, everybody did the arts. And so from a young age, I was doing theater, and because the arts are so big up there, high school theater is actually really, really good up there. And so I had a lot of great experience by the time I turned 18.
John, I'm sorry. I think I was being stupid. I couldn't
Now I
figure
can
out
hear you.
something.
Now I
Yeah,
can hear
I'm
you.
sorry. That wasn't my fault.
No worries.
I was talking to myself for the
No
last
worries.
5 minutes, but which is okay. Uh,
No worries.
but
No
no,
worries.
I was asking, was there a specific moment that you felt like, that hey, this is my calling and I want to get into acting or something? Was there anything that you remember
Well,
specifically?
yeah, I would say there are probably two moments. So, as a child, my grandmother worked at one of the theaters in Minneapolis that's won a regional Tony Award, the Children's Theater Company of Minneapolis. And so, the first part of that answer would be I remember as a kid being really inspired by a lot of these very talented stage actors. And my grandmother knew, on a first name basis, some of these icons of the Minneapolis theater scene, knew them by first name. For anybody from there watching, you might know names like Gerald Drake or Catherine Farrand or Wendy Lear, Charity Jones, and my grandmother just knew them. But the Children's Theater Company of Minneapolis really puts on wonderful productions. And so there was that part of it, I think. And when it came to high school, I thought about going to drama school, but I thought, no, I don't know about, making a living in the arts. And my sister actually ended up going to one of the best music schools in the country. And I remember at the time admiring her and thinking, man, that takes so much courage to go for a career in the arts. And so I went into the business world. And at 27, to answer your question, at 27, there was this moment where I kind of just realized, I have everything that I wanted, when I graduated from college, and I just, something was still missing. And I would watch movies to de-stress. And I remember in particular being really inspired by The King's Speech and The Theory of Everything, and just realizing, I think I want to move out to LA. And initially I thought I would want to do like film marketing behind the camera, like go to business school, get an MBA and do that. And through a series of events, I got connected with the right teachers, and I had solid experience from my younger days. And so it kind of came together gradually. But if you'd told me 10 years ago that I would be in Los Angeles, you know, in my first feature film, I probably would have laughed.
Absolutely. And now you've been in here for 10 years, right? And you've done a lot of work on network TV and commercial work. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the stuff that you've done?
Well, I've only been in LA for about 6 years, and I've done some background work on one of the soaps at CBS, and I've done my very first agent in town wanted me to do 10 short films, and those were all a blast and a joy to do. And I was a member of a classical theater company here in Los Angeles and got a couple of, I would say coveted lead roles in some classical plays. I've played Leontes in William Shakespeare's The Winter's Tale, which was a really tough part, and thankfully it did well. It was reviewed well, and it led to a local revival here of that play for a couple of years. And then I was Rashinin in Chekhov's Three Sisters, which was another really tough part. I did both of those parts in the same year, and in 2017. And I would say, honestly, dude, that both of those theater roles helped me for this part that you wrote, because this part was pretty challenging. I would not have been able to do it without conquering those stage roles first.
No, I always appreciate it when you have some theater experience, that really helps the director when if they're coming from theater. It's so easy to direct them, and they have that training, so that is really helpful. Um, but so let's jumping into our relationship. When do you remember the first time you came into the audition room, and what happened? I think that's a funny story.
It is one of my favorite audition stories, period. So I want to say that we probably got acquainted in 2017. I came in to audition for a comedic web series about Uber drivers that you were doing, Rideshare Chronicles, which ended up doing really well on Facebook, thousands and thousands of views. I don't remember how much, each episode got, but tens of thousands. And I had just put up on IMDb, I had just put up my very first reel. And so I walk in the audition room and you were, I mean, I would love to hear this at every single audition I go to. You were Andrew, maybe both of you kind of said it at the same time. You said, we've already watched your footage and we know we want to cast you. We just are trying to figure out what part to give to you, which was wonderful to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember that audition being a very strange day because we had some very interesting people coming in because I remember there was this one lady with a dog and a tiny tiny chihuahua, and it was so funny, but to have that chihuahua there, but it was running around doing all these things, and we were like we got so distracted, and I think we stopped the
Yeah.
audition and we were playing around with chihuahua for like 10 minutes, and we walked back to the hallway and all the models and the actors were there for the audition. They're playing around with the chihuahua. It became like this whole
Yeah.
And then but then we obviously didn't cast her for obvious reasons. But um, it's still, by
Probably not
that
good to
time.
bring a dog to an audition.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean that's kind of should be on the 101. Unless, I mean, that dog was really cute. If that dog wanted a part, I really would have casted it. But it just
You could have written an episode about a dog. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It was very distracting. It was definitely distracting. And then, even though, I mean, just for people who doesn't know, in LA, I think it's the same in New York. If you when a director or a casting agent posts a notice saying, "Hey, I want an actor for this role," or whatever, we get hundreds of submissions, right? Being a small filmmaker, I don't have a name yet. I'm not a branded filmmaker. I'm just a filmmaker who's trying to, do something in my caliber. I would probably get about 100 to 200 submission if it is like a very tiny role, like, and if it is like a
Wow.
lead, and if it is for a web series or a special show, then it's not uncommon to get about 500, 600 submissions. And that's what it was.
Wow.
We had about 500, 600 submissions that day, and Andrew and I, we went through almost all of them, and we sort of
Wow.
shortlisted some people we wanted, and then we asked them to come in and still audition, and along with some others. But when John, it was real, was at that point really perfectly done, in a way you're like, what, we like this guy, he's cool. And then he walked into the room, and he has that personality from, he's very pleasant to work with, and you're like, what, yeah, he got
Thank
it.
you.
We don't even need to do this anymore. So that was that. But after that, we worked on a couple of projects. I remember we did a commercial together, and we did a
Yeah.
little bit stuff. So I'm gonna let you speak a little bit about the projects, some of the projects we've done together. I feel like I'm talking a lot. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's great. So let's see. We did Rideshare Chronicles, which was really fun, but it was amazing how that particular shoot. Thankfully, it worked out. Everything worked out, and it resonated. And then we did. I can't remember which came first. We did. You called me up for a commercial. You had a client who had, you had like 1,500 submissions for a commercial, I think you said, and the client didn't like any of them. And then you called me up, and he liked me, thankfully. So then we were
Yeah, real quick,
doing
I'm
this
going to interject real quick.
commercial.
So when we have a commercial
Yeah.
client, it's very different, because then we're not just trying to please like ourselves. We had to convince the client that this, or whoever we are casting is good, and they have a lot of say in, especially if it is a commercial. And we went through so many of them. They didn't, and we were like getting frustrated with them, and then we like, we showed Jones again. I think whoever cut that reel, you need to pay them some extra money, John. They really deserve it.
I think I need to go back, and I might have a copy of that reel somewhere now. Nowadays, my reel, I think my manager has a staff, an editor on staff who does all of it for her clients, and so I have some say in what goes into it. But I think the reel you saw was my very first one, and if I remember, there were four clips from different short films I had done. I had some great short films that I really enjoyed, but so yeah, we did that commercial. And then you called me up one day. Actually, it was the day I signed with my manager. Actually, you called me up, and I pulled over to take your call, and you had this idea for a short film about baby trafficking and illegal adoption, and you explained the scenario, and you explained it to me, and I was just shocked. I mean, I had heard, I know bits about human trafficking because I have friends who are active in that, fighting that, and I knew bits about baby trafficking, but the story that you shared with me literally stopped me in my tracks. I was already pulled over, and I just had the phone. I was like, wait, what? And so, and you put together this short film and cast it, and we shot it on a VR camera and a regular camera. And actually, May of last year, during COVID, you dropped the VR version on Facebook, and now I think last I checked, it's like at 1.5 million views. And then you also shot the same film on a regular camera, and Kayla, the DP, just killed it. It was such a hard. I mean, when we switched from the VR camera to the regular one, that was such a hard shoot for a DP to, I mean, and so the film itself, if you haven't seen the VR version, it's about 4 or 5 minutes, and it's, without giving it away, it's from the perspective of this baby, outside of the United States, and the baby is looking around at what's happening. And I just thought it was so brilliant and clever. And, it did, thankfully, it did really well. And I don't know when the regular camera version. Can you tell that I don't know a ton about cameras? I just know the base. I'm calling it the regular camera and the VR camera. They're probably more dignified names for for all of this. But anyway, so there was a short film we did together, and then one day you called me and said, "Hey, I have an idea for a film," and we had dinner and discussed it, which I'll never forget that dinner either.
Yeah, but I think one part of that story that's missing is that
Yeah,
um, when we did Rideshare Chronicles, and there's this uh, the Rideshare Chronicles was a web series we did. It had about 6 episodes, and it did really great. But after that, I was faced with a personal tragedy, and that
yes,
really put me in a very bad place per se, and what I remember was that I was just so low in everything, and I was in Venice Beach skating, and he John called me up. He's like, "So, Lucky, what's next?" So, and I was like, nothing. Nothing's gonna happen.
huh,
It's hell. I don't want to do anything.
yeah,
I don't know, for a while. I'm not in the right space. I'm not in the mood. Blah blah blah. All that stuff. But then I remember, I mean, I think
yeah,
for a living, John does consult businesses as well on a side hustle. So I think he knows what to say and what to do. So very,
yeah,
very respectively, told me that, like the only way you can get over this is to put your mind to something and actually do something. I know it's hard, I know it's easy, but you have to, stay in track and do something. And I don't know how he somehow convinced me, because at that point, I mean, we didn't have any money, we didn't have any.
yeah,
I mean, in logically thinking, that was the wrong time to do a project. You have absolutely nothing, and you're like, well, that's fine,
yeah.
so you got nothing to lose, let's just go and do something. And that's how we got started. And one of my favorite DPs we work with is Ona, and she was leaving the country, and she had about like a 30-day window, and I hated it, because she was always my right hand girl that I always call whenever I had a gig. Hey dude, we have
Yeah,
this or that, or even the commercial she
I
DP'd.
miss her.
This, she, and
Yeah,
then, and it
yeah.
was like, what, like, and it's so hard to find a director, to find a good DP that you can connect with. And it was
Yeah.
and that was that. And it's like, well, like, hey, then why don't you do something before she leaves? I'm like, oh, okay, sure. Yeah, we got 30 days,
Yeah.
and you're gonna do something. And we ended up actually making a movie. But the sad part of that
Oh.
was we couldn't get John involved, because he's big
Oh.
shot, right? He's not a regular actor. He's a union actor, so we cannot
Yeah.
just randomly
No.
get him involved in projects. Okay, we had to get permission
Yes.
from union, all these things, and a lot of paperwork. But the thing was, it
Yeah.
was still. I don't think that film would have happened if John didn't help. If he didn't come through. And now, even still, he helped throughout the project, like almost like a consultant level, to make sure that it happened. So I'm really grateful
Wow.
for
I
that.
didn't know.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't tell
I
you
didn't
that
know some of
personally,
that till
right?
right now. Thank you.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow. Thank you.
And
I'm
and I
honored.
remember you even coming to the premiere of that film, and then helping
Yeah.
us with the Q&A.
Yeah.
I thought that was really nice of you to do that. And then everyone loved it. And I mean, think about it, like, it's kind of, because you were supposed to, y- when life and things happen, you cannot move, right? There are certain times in life,
Yeah.
situations happen, you feel stuck, and you cannot do anything, and everything, you feel like, what, you feel like it's not the right time or the mood or whatever, right? In times like that, it's very
Yeah.
helpful to have friends like you and colleagues like you who'd be like,
Huh.
and that will give you the
Thank you.
extra push to make things happen, you know and that is the only reason we made that movie, and that led us to this movie. So it's a very, very important
Wow.
part of the process. So thank you, John, for doing that. So
I'm I I'm really moved by that, and I'll probably that'll really sink in. But it's so funny we're talking about that film because earlier today I was thinking about Eddie's work in that film, Eddie, who's also in Free by Noon, and I remember being at the theater for that premiere and just thinking how wonderful Eddie's screen acting was, first of all, and then the other thing I thought of today, when I thought of that film, One Star Rider, was the part that I was going to play in that film that you had talked to me about playing was this. It was this small supporting role, this homeless man, and I was so excited to play the part because they were going to transform my, just make me look completely unrecognizable, and I had a voice ready and everything. And then, as you mentioned, because of being a member of SAG-AFTRA, the Screen Actors Guild, I can only do, union productions. And part of why I joined the union was because I, was doing a lot pre-COVID on one of the soaps at CBS. They were calling me in pretty consistently. And so, but that homeless part, I thought of that today. I was like, it would have been a lot of fun just to, I think the voice, it was something like, hi there, how are you? Like something really, I just would have gotten to do something completely different. So anyway, carry on. But I was thinking about that film today, actually. It's funny that we're talking about it.
Yeah, for sure. And then I think once that was done, we really wanted to do this project because the film we did, the VR film we did, it did really well for a VR film, because VR films are
Yeah.
still not a thing. There's still no platform to put it on. It's so hard to watch it, to present it to people because people need to wear headsets and they need to, and they get jittery after a while and the technology is still not there. So it's so weird to make a VR. I think I'm one of those people who are always very early to the party. I always do things way earlier
Yeah.
than when it's when it's actually the technology. I think I'm an early adapter, way too early adapter. So that was the
Well,
same thing with VR,
it
but
was,
still, yeah.
yeah. Oh, I was just going to say it was tricky. That film was so tricky because and I want to say we did something like 30 takes of the VR version of the film with two different cameras, and then the regular camera version we only did 4 takes of it. But what I was going to say, the VR film was tricky because it was like stage acting and screen acting at the same time, because you had, the VR camera picking up the details like screen acting, but then the VR camera also picked up the whole space, kind of like with stage acting. And so I remember you talking to me and the other actors and saying, just keep in mind, like this is kind of like both. And I've still never had any experience like that. As much as I've done a lot of stage acting and now I've done more screen acting, the VR experience was one to remember for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we had such an amazing cast on that with Angeline and Madara and then Sudesh and Marina,
Yeah.
everyone involved in it because
Oh,
it was such a hard thing to do, to act for a camera that's so uh unforgiving per se. I think that's the right word.
the odds were
And
stacked against us. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think one of the hardest things that I had to do on that film was trying to like not worry too much about all the minor things because it's not it's a 360-degree thing. And then as far as acting goes, I think you and Angeline was able to nail the performances all the time. I think that's one of those things that,
Thank you.
again, when you come from the
Thank
stage,
you.
you have that experience in it, and you can nail it all the time. And it was me and the makeup artist was the only people
Thank
who were
you.
able to have the monitor outside, and I could see her going,
Yeah.
like, yeah, that was good, and she's trying to cry like every time. Oh, I'm like, dude, shut up.
It
You're
took
always
me, it took me 4 days to recover from that shoot because, I mean, the subject matter was very, and if for folks watching, if you haven't seen it, go online to Facebook and look it up. And I still have people in other states, that, I mean, I just was up in Minnesota visiting some people, and a lady who is not into, in entertainment at all, but she watches everything on television. She just said, "Oh, it was wonderful," and you kind of begin to figure out what's happening, and so it's fun getting the feedback. And it was tricky. Thanks for the kind words. Thank you. It was tricky, but I was so proud of how the cast did, and I was relieved that that I pulled it off.
No, absolutely. I think you did great. Everyone did great. And I think the testimonial for that is when we posted the video, we never expected that kind of reaction from the audience. I never
No.
expected it to have 1.5 million views. And it's not just the views, it's the
Yeah.
comments you have there, the people watching it from all different countries, all different parts of the world, and they'll be able to resonate to it. And some people are
Yeah.
practically like mad at Sudesh, for like they some of the comments are so
Yeah.
hateful, and they're like, oh, I want to kill that guy, I want to do this, that, but it's just playing a
Yeah.
role. But it shows how much it
Yeah.
actually resonate with people, and it really it feels good to know that, it feels good to do something out, even though it took a while for us to get it online and the fly in the platform. It found its audience,
Yeah.
and I think that film will still do better when this VR thing is actually a thing, and people start wearing VR headsets, and this content become more and more available. I think this film will still find a home somewhere there, but for now, at
Yeah.
least it has done its job, and I'm very happy with what it was able to do.
Well,
um
and it got into a prestigious festival in Mexico City. And then the I'll call it the regular camera version. There's probably a better technical term. The two-dimensional camera. I don't know what to call it, but that film, the 2D camera, that got into, I think, 4 film festivals in India. And so I'm excited for whenever the opportunity comes for that to be released in the U.S. Again, Kayla, I mean, everybody did it. The cast and crew I thought were wonderful. But Kayla, really, I think even day of, you were like, man, like how, you got this shot, and you got, and for that, keep in mind the cast, as we're looking at the baby, we're acting into a camera. So it was quite an experience. I've had a lot of fun experiences through your projects. That's probably why I keep coming back.
Absolutely. That's why I keep hiring you back, because you're able to bear the tests that you put you through. But
Yeah.
now, since I know there are a lot of people who would like to learn about your acting style per se. I think on our set, especially on Free
Oh.
by Noon, it has such a interesting variation of acting techniques with the actors. I always had to keep reminding me, okay, this person is this way, this person is this way, and I think that's part of the director's job anyway. I don't think any actor, oh, there's a right way or wrong way anyway. But for me, this was such a mix in that way. Like, wait, okay, so this person I had to talk to him this way, and the other person you had to be this way, and it's I know it's interesting. Everyone thinks acting is this, hey, you just go in front of the camera and do your thing because it's TikTok or whatnot. It's not. There is so much to it. So, tell me a little about how you approach acting and what is your, without giving your trade secrets, how do you approach acting and how do you get into a role, and some tips for people who would like to see, get into acting and learn something from you.
Well, man, those are such good questions. I'll try to answer each one. So, when I approach a character, I'll start there. So, when I'm reading a screenplay, what's funny is as I'm reading it, I kind of, whichever character they're interested in having me play, I think of people that I know and that I've met. And I think some parts, some of the stage roles I mentioned earlier, like a Shakespearean king, a Russian general, I based those off of actual people I knew. And the character I play in Free by Noon, Nate, I based him off of someone I knew when I lived in a different city, different state. Um, So sometimes there's a character that it just, I read the screenplay or the script, whatever, whether it's television or a play or whatever, and it reminds me of someone. And so I know exactly, okay, and then that's where I begin. That's just the starting point. But then sometimes, there are characters that are similar to me, or the director, whoever I'm working with, they want to see me in the role. They don't want me to hide behind a character. They want to see me. And so then you kind of have to put some of yourself in there. And in my opinion, you kind of, there's a famous quote that Meryl Streep says where, she looks for herself in the character first and works from there. And I guess that's how she does all of her parts. And so if the character is, if whoever's in charge wants to have me in the character, then I start there. So, and there's a whole, for people who are very new to acting or who don't know much about it, in order to get the emotion, kind of like the short film we just discussed, Tiny Fingers and Little Eyes, where we had to do 30 takes with crying every time. There are two general ends of the spectrum, I would say, for how to bring up that emotion. There are method actors who want to go through the exact experience that the character is going through as much as they can. So if it's a scene where they've just run a marathon, they'll go run around the block for a bit first. Then another school of thought would be, I would say, the Stella Adler school of thought, where you make up a backstory that moves you instead of using your own life or trying to do what the character is actually doing through method acting. I tend to use Stella Adler's approach because I would rather, I don't know, keep my personal life separate as much as possible. But then sometimes I have used my own. Sometimes I'll use bits of my own um, life experience and story, because I can relate to the character, I can relate to the situation, and so I guess it just depends on the situation or which the character. But other than that, I would say that I'm big on technique. I'm big on being very prepared. I really want to be meticulously prepared, because then when the director comes in, whether it's stage or film, then they have a lot to work with, and whatever direction they take you, you're ready to go there. You know the lines, you have the character, you have everything ready to go. And for people that, again, maybe aren't as informed on all of this, in the stage, you rehearse for weeks with the director, but then for the performances, the director's not there. And then with screen acting, it's the opposite, where you work alone well, I like to be prepared, so several weeks of getting everything ready. And then when you're shooting, the director's there the whole time. So it's two different ends of the spectrum. But so to answer your question, I kind of like to use a little bit of everything, but I wouldn't say I'm a method actor, and I'm very big on being prepared. I'm also very big on, being respectful to your colleagues. So I don't like to, play stunts where, say that it's a scene that I have to be someone has to be mad at me. I'm not going to show up and try to get them mad at me before we're rolling. And sometimes, it's depending on, well, yeah, some people like to stay in character all day on set. I've never had a situation yet where I've felt the need to do that. I mean, I know how to get in character, but if I'm maybe one day if I'm playing a historical figure or someone with an accent and mannerisms and movements, it might be easier to just stay in character all day. But I would say I'm big on, definitely the preparation is big, and then depending on the part, I kind of craft my approach, if that makes any sense.
No, absolutely. And going back to that, talking about preparations, when we did Tiny Fingers, I remember showing up to set, and I was, usually I'm not really very big on directions per se. I'm supposed to
Yeah,
direct, but I really believe in hiring the right people to do the job, and then let them do their job, instead of trying to micromanage everything and every aspect of it.
yes,
So I
yep,
just, I that's why we spend so much time on and casting or finding the right people, and because once you find them, then your job is so much easier. You just had to trust them with it. And then and part of that was with Tiny Fingers. When I showed up on set, I was having a little conversation about, guys, this is what happening. And I remember John and Angeline both had done so much research on this topic, and they were teaching me so much stuff that I had no idea about. I wasn't even that informed of the situation. Angeline has done some
Yeah.
research even to say how much would actually cost to buy a baby, and they
Yeah.
were like all of
Yeah.
these things. And it actually it's a tiny short film, that we were supposed to do, but still they put that much effort into it. They put that much work into it to research and figure out, what's going on in this, what's this and that, and all the details. And someone could say, argue that, hey, you know what, that doesn't really show on screen. If it doesn't show on screen, why you bother with it? But that's not really the case. It really, really helps if you're getting into that character, even though it's it could be even for a YouTube video. It doesn't have to be a film.
Yeah.
It's about how much you can actually get in and do your work. And I think you remember on set, when we were doing Rideshare Chronicles, there was this we were shooting it, and there was this one incident where we were shooting with John and Nicole and Eddie, and we were shooting for like hours, right? And then with this one actress who had all day to prep her thing, right? And then after the scenes, we showed up, we were ready to film, and she didn't have her lines ready, you know and
Yes, I vaguely remember that. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
in typical me fashion, I went all crazy. Like, what, you have to know your lines.
No, you're a
But
gentleman though. You're a
yeah,
gentleman.
but because it's because that's the basic. I'm going back to it. It's that I think that was her first time being on set, or first time or second time being on that. She hasn't done much acting, you know and
Oh,
she just moved out from LA. She
yeah.
didn't know what she was doing, and she was expecting that we'll cut between each take, and she'd have more time to prep all these things. So like, oh, I just had to remember one or two lines at second. But it's not the way it works. If you show up on set, I think it's very
Yeah.
important that at least your day's work, you have to memorize them. That's the step one. After that, you
Oh,
do the research
yeah.
and all these things.
Yeah.
It's very basic. But if you're coming on set, make sure you know your lines. And it's nothing irritating for a director that's trying to direct, that who doesn't, know their lines to start with. Forget the research, forget
Oh,
all that. But step one, yeah.
yeah. It's frustrating for the cast too, because especially if it's a really challenging, like, hypothetically, Tiny Fingers and Little Eyes, if Angeline had showed up not prepared, it would have been like dragging a dead weight. Like when someone is prepared and so emotionally open, it's just, you connect with your scene partner so well, and it's like a ride on a roller coaster. It's so much fun, and you don't know where it's going to go. And I would suspect it's fun for the director too, because you can tell that the actors were just kind of flowing with it and seeing what happens. And you brought up two great points. Research, that's in addition to learning lines, absolutely. And for Free by Noon, I definitely did a bunch of research. In fact, our cast was super collaborative with sharing research, which was wonderful. And then you brought up something else. You brought up another point that was really good about, well, anyway, if I remember it, I'll bring it up. But yeah, you, in my experience working with you, well, I remember what it was. So, Rideshare Chronicles, I don't think you gave me one note for any of those 6 episodes. And I remember at the time thinking like, oh, okay, and later I figured out like, okay, if he's not giving you any notes, it means he likes what you're doing. I think Alfred Hitchcock was that way, where he just wouldn't say a lot, and he would only say something if, he had something to say. And some directors really are micromanagers, and you're not that way at all. And
Yeah, I
and
think
you,
I think it's
in my
sometimes
experience,
people like to be on
yeah,
set, that some directors try to, like, okay, they want to show that they're directing. That is like part of the job.
yeah,
So they sometimes trying
yeah,
to like say stuff that is not even necessary, but the only note they're giving is just confuse the actor a lot more. you know
yeah,
so that's why I try to be, a lot less micromanaging, because I hate when people micromanage me, so I know what it's like when when it happens. But more of it is that
yeah,
I really like the conversations we have before, especially with when you're working with
yeah,
professional actors. you don't need to give them that much instructions. But if you're working with someone who has no experience, then obviously you have to give them so much notes and so much feedback just so that you can get them on board, right? But when I work with you or
Yeah.
any of the actors that actually was in our film, it was so easy because you guys know how to prep, you guys know how to work,
Thank
you guys
you.
know how to do this scene, so in that situations I don't
Thank
have to go
you.
and say, hey, I don't have to act out the line to show what needs to be done. You know what I mean? It's And also I think it's one of those things that I've learned from is that that is the easy way. If it is a new actor, sure, you have to do that, right? If there's no way, but especially with you guys, you're as a
Yeah.
professionally trained, you've some so much set experience. It doesn't actually help to do that. Instead, I think you remember me asking you a bunch of times, what, do it your way and just do it like a random way. You know what I mean? Like the way that you wouldn't feel like the character would do. And sometimes we were able to use that take instead of, you know what I mean? So that was that.
Yeah.
And yeah, as far as acting, I think I'm just trying to get more information for the actors that people who would like to become actors, who want to become actors, would like to learn a
Yeah.
thing from you. I think, just like I said before, know your lines. It's very important. It's very basic, but when you come into set, know that. And second, just like we talk about, do your research. It could be a very small character, it could be a background, it could be supporting character, but whatever it is, do your research. So when you come to set, you can incorporate it. You don't have to just be a line reader. You can actually be an actor. You can
Yeah.
actually perform. You can actually contribute more to the role. And the
Yeah.
other thing is like another example of knowing your lines is that I think this is I don't think this usually happens on any set, so don't worry, this won't happen to you most probably. But one day we were shooting, we were running out of daylight, and I told John and Justin that, hey, so we're gonna shoot the next 15 pages right now, and I want you to go memorize, like make sure you have it. So usually it's okay on a day we shoot about
The
4 pages,
Hitchcock
right?
take.
Yeah, it's like the Hitchcock thing. Usually about 4 pages is what we would shoot. Oh, that's if you get lucky. But we were like, you know what? There's no way. And they were like, wait, what? Really? And they thought I was joking at first. They were all laughing. They were like, oh no, this isn't a joke. So yeah, tell me a little bit how it happened. I feel like again, I need to let you speak instead of me speaking on this thing. So I'm trying to, yeah. Anyway, so
No,
you go
it's
ahead. You tell me what happened on
I
the
re-
story.
I remember. So I remember that particular day of shooting. It might have been towards the middle of the shoot, and it was one of Justine. I think it was maybe her second or third day on set, and she was knocking it out of the park. And it was a day where I could come in late because most of the days I was there, early morning and then until the end of the day, but some breaks in between. But it was a day that I was allowed to come in late, like at 2 o'clock maybe or noon or something, and so I drove up to set, and I walk in, and you pull me aside, and you're like, "Dude, she's really good. Like I can tell she has theater experience." And so that was at the beginning of the day, and then I think we did a couple scenes together, and then you had your idea. You were like, actually, let's combine, a bunch of pages here. We're just going to put the camera in the corner of the room. We're going to call it a Hitchcock take, and we did 7 takes of that. And I I generally don't watch anything, like because I don't want it to mess with me at all. But I remember Justine got to watch some of it, and I still one day I would like to see, your favorite take of those because it's a critical scene if I remember. But yeah, you decided to do a Hitchcock take, and it was great. I mean, we Justine is so much fun to work with. I hope I can work with her on something else at some point soon. But we did it, and in that particular scene, I remember. I think I'm being tortured a little bit because I remember I was breathing so heavily that a couple of those takes I was actually getting dizzy. And in the scene, I'm thinking, oh, I hope I can remember my lines. I hope I can remember my lines. And so some of those takes, if you and the editor were watching them, you're like, what's with John? Is he look like I actually, yes, probably was a little actually realistically dizzy on a couple of those takes. But yes, that's the
No,
story of
and
the
again,
Hitchcock take.
coming back to the professionalism on it, is that imagine you you coming to shoot knowing that this is what you're gonna shoot on set. You're showing up on set on time,
Yeah.
and the director walking you up to and saying, "Hey, forget that scene. We're gonna pull something. We're gonna shoot something totally different. Forget those scenes that you just spend the whole night memorizing. We're gonna shoot something totally different. But Not only that, it's 15 pages of lines I want you to memorize in 20 minutes, you know? And the thing is, when you said that, at first you guys were laughing, and then it was a joke, and then you figured it's serious. And then there was no moment of hesitation, moment to argue, moment to like, hey, Lucky, no, you're crazy. We're not going to do that, like nothing. They're like, okay. And
Yeah,
you
we
went
didn't
to
tell
your
you
side.
no. We're not going to
Yeah,
tell you
Justin.
no. Yeah.
Yeah, Justin went to the other side, and then you guys were just, getting your lines together. And when that was happening, the whole crew was work really hard to make sure that was happening. Actually, going back to that situation, we were shooting and shooting, shooting. We were running out of days. We were running out of ways to shoot that. If we didn't do it that way, we would have really fallen behind. We would have been so much trouble. That was our Nick, who was an
Yeah.
amazing assistant director, and he did miracles on
Yeah.
this film. And he was really worried
Yeah.
about that. Like, there's no way, there's no way realistically we can shoot all these scenes today. You have to, choose. We can
Nick.
pick and choose what you're gonna do or whatever. And that's why I said, you know what, let's just do this. But what's important is when you have the right people, that's such an amazing thing. Imagine having one person who's just gonna be doubt your direction on that film. Who's gonna be like, you know what, this is not gonna happen,
Yeah.
blah blah blah, having issues that you have to spend 20 minutes or 10 minutes arguing with them or convincing them that what you're doing is right. Right. Instead, they were like, okay, you're crazy,
Yeah.
but we're gonna do it anyway. You're crazy. You're crazy. You come into my project, you already know I'm crazy. So that's common knowledge, okay? But no one on there was like, okay, this is stupid. But they're like, okay, you want to do it? Let's do it. So I said that. Joan and Justin went to the sites. They started memorizing their lines, and Nick started doing her thing, and we started blocking the scene. And Devin did some amazing things, and MJ, our sound guy, who did crazy stuff during that take. And I wish we had a behind the scenes camera, and actually I let someone shoot it, but I think they set it on a time lapse instead of on a video on their phone, so it doesn't really show what was
Oh.
really happened.
Oh
So, but
no.
still, you know
Yeah.
who that is. But it still, it didn't, it doesn't really bother a lot with what happened. But it was so cool. We were able to knock it out. We were able to get it done. And every take,
Yeah.
I don't think we cut. We had to do about 7 or 5 takes, but that wasn't because of
Yeah. 7.
John or
Yeah.
Justin. That it's like, oh, see, he remembers the
Yeah.
exact number, because that, yeah, that, yeah,
Yeah.
that is not something you easily forget. But I think
7
most of
takes.
it, 7 takes, yeah, 7 15-minute takes, but most of this
Yeah.
was because it happened on the camera department side, not on actor's side. It happened because we would bump into something, we would run into something. Because in Hitchcock films, or when they do these long takes, they usually on set. They usually are on a studio set where they can
Yeah.
move the
Yeah.
walls, to change the lighting, do all this crazy stuff. But on our film, we couldn't do any of that. We were in a tiny house with, apart from you guys, we were. I think all the
Look.
other actors were locked up in their other room. I think that was a fire hazard. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure you're not supposed to do that. But that's how it
Yeah.
was.
I
And
don't.
I
Yeah.
remember, like, when we were shooting,
Yeah.
I could see, like, bowling, like being, I was like, oh, this is going to happen, like, the 5 minutes. I don't know what's gonna happen. This is gonna go. It was such a adventure, And again,
Yeah.
coming back to the
Yeah.
actors, we were able to do that one because we had a very good crew. Everyone in the project
Yes.
worked so hard to
The
it.
best.
They had their mind and soul and everything put into it, into this tiny film. That's why I always say, when you hire
Yeah.
people, you have to hire them who's coming to the project, um, not for the monetary purposes or the glory or to be famous or whatever. Those all things are perks, but you had to see whether they're doing it for the right reasons. And I think with that, with
Yeah.
my project, I got really lucky with everyone, because everyone absolutely did that. They were really, really passionate
Look.
about it. And, that shoot was so crazy, able to get it, knock it out. And again, being a director and working with an actor, again, another note I would like to say to people that I want to be actors, is that, sometimes directors may ask you to do something crazy, you know, and
Yeah.
uh, and that may not really compute with you at that moment. It's like, why my character would never do that, yada yada yada. But unless they're asking you to do something illegal or something really crazy, no, then say no, absolutely.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
it is within the
Yeah.
norms and if it is creatively, maybe something challenging you might not know, but always give that a shot and don't do it just to prove
Yeah.
your point. Or sometimes I see actors like, on set, when you ask them to do something just to prove the director wrong, they will mess up that set. You know what I mean? Not professional actors. I'm talking about, the ones, silly ones. But
Yeah.
don't do that. If you're an actor director, may have a vision, they may have a broader way of doing it. So just ignore the, whatever comes in your prejudices or what you have in your mind. Just do it. Maybe in the
Yeah.
editing room you can pick and choose. So just
Absolutely.
trust your director in your project. If he asks you to do a take that is totally different or totally outrageous and is such a different way, just do it, because later on we can save it. And at that point, the way they did it
Yeah.
in the movie, I know as soon as the movie is finished, I'm gonna run out of the theater, because I don't want to be anywhere near Justin and John, because of this scene. They're like you got us to do all these things, and then so I'm very curious to see how you guys react once you see this scene. And actually, we should blame it on the editor. Luckily, he's in Sri Lanka, so you can go kill him over there. Okay, it's not my call. But again, the point is that's it's very important to listen to director. If you're in a project,
Yes.
and to trust them with
Yes.
it and give them a little bit of
Yeah.
your faith, in knowing what they're doing. Um,
Absolutely.
now, moving on, what was the most challenging scene in the movie apart from what we discussed? This scene, what was really challenging for you?
Um, I would say, man, that's a good question. Two answers to that. So I don't even know. Okay, so here's what I've noticed for me as an actor. Sometimes, so two answers to that question. First answer is sometimes I find the everyday moments are trickier than like big dramatic emotional things, and for me probably comedy is the easiest, personally. So two answers to that question. So number one, there was a scene that we shot, I think the very first day, because I didn't have any lines in it. My whole job was to get a gallon of milk out of the fridge and just take a drink out of it and put it back in the fridge. And we did like 6 takes of that. And then meanwhile, so that for whatever reason was tricky to make it look natural. But then there were other more challenging scenes where you didn't need as many takes. Um, so there's that answer, that sometimes the everyday moments, and so that scene, getting the gallon of milk out and drinking it and putting it back in, for some reason just was challenging. Maybe it's because first day, I don't know. The second scene, do you remember the gallon of milk scene? Do you remember that we
Yeah,
did
yeah,
like 6 takes
absolutely.
of
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yep, yep, yep.
So, but then I would say the a scene that I really prepared. Well, okay, wait. Challenging scenes. On okay, wait. I have more answers. I know I gave one already. But there's two other ones. Do you remember the scene where it's me, Rachel, and Melissa in front of the fridge, and Rachel's character leaving, and Melissa's character is giving her a snack, kind of as Rachel's character is leaving? Do you remember that scene?
Yep, 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 yep.
Yeah, okay. For some reason, day of that one was tricky, and I didn't expect it to be, but I think it was because there were three of us trying to gel together versus just, a lot of the scenes, it's just me and one other person. But I think what ended up being the heaviest was the scene with Melissa's character, with Susan, in the bedroom, and where and it's a critical scene, and I'll never forget, V running out of the room crying, because I guess it was really realistic. And then when we were done shooting all of that, we walked out, and Eddie was in the kitchen, and he was like, "I thought this was a comedy." So those would be, sorry, that's three answers instead of one, but the gallon of
No,
milk
I love
scene
it.
for
I
some
love it.
reason was weird. And then for some reason it was tricky with the three of us there in front of the fridge there. And then
Right.
definitely I would say the bedroom scene with Melissa, the
So can
argument.
you tell me about V crying out of the room? I think that's a good story that people need to know
Yeah.
what happened on that.
So we shot that particular scene in the morning on one of the days. Maybe towards the end, and so we did the scene as written, and then then I left the room, and you did some stuff, worked with Melissa a bit, and then you had me come back in because Melissa was really, I mean, really flowing with it, really feeling it, and so then we did that whole scene again, and then, which was brilliant, a brilliant director thing to do. I was sitting on the couch in the living room thinking I was done, and then you're like, hey, come on back in here, we need you, come on back in here. And so we did the scene again, and then you had put the camera in front of me for a bit and in front of her for a bit, and we ad-libbed in character. And I don't know what made V specifically, what part of it reacted, but I remember her being in the corner of the room kind of by the door, and then she just like put her hand on her mouth and left and walked out. And when I asked her about it afterwards, she just said, it was really real. It was very, very, very real to her.
Yeah.
And that's why she
really
just,
a real scene.
yeah.
You guys did it the way it. Even remember, even for me, it was very hard to watch. It was very hard to
Wow.
convince
Wow.
what we did, and I hope
Wow.
again, like it didn't. It made some of it to the movie, but not the whole thing. I wish, even it has to take. That's what I said. That clip itself by itself should be a movie. Because it was that good.
Wow.
You guys did
Wow.
really
Thank
good with
you.
it. I think again that's why we go back to it to talk about how working in theater or your training and everything kicks in when you have a scene like that. Again, like
Yeah.
if I would have micromanaged that scene, I don't know what I would do. I would have ruined the whole scene. I would have ruined it. That's why it's so important to let you play it, and then maybe in the edit we can use some of it. So that's the way
Yeah.
it was happen. And then coming back to it a little bit more on it is that a quick question. Sometimes people ask me, is that Lucky, why do you make this talking head movies? Why don't you? Oh, am I stuck in the video for some reason?
Oh, it looks.
Oh, you can't
I'm
see.
not seeing you.
That's right.
Oh wait. Okay, wait. Now it's back to me. I think because I'm talking, but
Okay,
no,
yeah,
I
there's
don't see you now. I'll
something
be
happened.
quiet, and then
But
you'll come back.
no
Okay.
worries. So tell me. So I'll get back to that a little bit once I figure out the camera issue. But for now, what do
No worries.
you So when working with it, tell me the help you got from Lal and Bowling. And Bowling is Molwatu, by the way. That's her real name. We call her Bowling. And
Yes.
we had
Yeah.
Andrew and two Andrews on set. So tell me a little bit about the help you got from the producers on the movie.
Oh, they were wonderful. I loved our producers, and then our executive producer Lal. So supportive, and so we had V and Bolin, and then the two Andrews, Andrew Wynn, Andrew Davis. The two Andrews, we called them. They weren't able to be there every day, but it was always a pleasure having them. I remember one of the days that they were there was a scene where I'm like running into the kitchen and frantically, running around. I'm in a robe and all this stuff, and it was I think that was the only full scene they sat in on and watched, and so they were kind of in the corner, watching as I'm frantic. And I don't know how many takes we did of that, but they were there for that, and Bolin was just wonderful. I and Nick, I mean the assistant director, we again not only were the cast great, the crew great, but the filmmakers, yourself, the producers, the executive producer, everybody was so supportive. And I think Lal only was able to come to set maybe at least one day, but I've been told that, and this is my first feature film, so we'll see if this holds true. But I've been told that with independent films, it really feels like family. And I'm just excited to be able to see everybody again. Whenever we're all united again, and our wrap party once we were done. I remember that. We finished somewhere around maybe 11 p.m. or midnight, and then went to a restaurant in the area. And I remember getting home at 3 a.m. and I called my dad in the Midwest, 5 a.m. there, and he was up already. I just said, well, we finished the film. and I think you have a clip somewhere of me right
Oh,
after we
that
finished. I'm like
was
laying on
great.
the ground, like, oh my gosh,
Yep,
on the rug, because you pushed me. And that's the other thing about, I
yep,
think, well, okay, when you're talking about directing, you like to work with your actors a little bit before shoot day, which I think is wonderful. I will always take that from a director, please. And then I think the other thing is that when an actor has practiced and rehearsed and they're ready, they're excited to hear what the director wants to do, because they're like, sure, I'll take some new ideas, sure, I'll take something. And to your point about being open to direction, even if it's something that doesn't make sense, I think that's extremely important, because the actor, you know, film is the director's vision, and we fall under that vision. And so if, an actor is being asked to do something, we need to trust the director and go for it. And later we might find out what the objective was. We might not ever, but the point is, I think, to be supportive of the director and give the director what they need, because they know what they need to give the editor. And ultimately, as you alluded to, you want the editor to have lots of options to. That's another thing with this film. I feel like I learned a lot about editing just because, not because I was talking a lot with our editor,
but
but
but I think the
but
editor would disagree. He
I
would
had
say,
to think
Lucky, I
about
need
it.
more shots. I think the
Oh
editor
yeah,
would disagree. He would ask for more shots, and I would agree. I wish we would get more shots. More angles,
yeah,
more ways to cut. But again, it is what
yeah,
it is. You know what I mean? Once we're done, that's
yeah,
all we can get. But and another thing I
yeah,
wanted to say is, this is kind of embarrassing to admit too, but um, eh, when a lot of people ask me, why do I make films with two people talking, or why do I make talking head movies? Why don't we want you to make these
yeah,
action films filled with fights and car chases, and then smokes coming out, and then all these things. I mean, or is it only that I like this small micro budget films? And the answer to that is no. I want to make films that with flying cars and spaceships and robots and all these things. I would love to do that, right? But the
yeah,
problem is, it's not. We have to be very mindful when you do a micro budget film or independent film with the things we can do. At the end of the day, you're
yeah,
working with your crew, and your cost and your safety is very important. I think at one point,
yes.
again, this is me. There was a scene where someone had to slap Joan in the face. Okay, and
Oh,
for me, it's such a simple thing. For me, it's like, hey, just go slap him.
yeah.
You know, and I was under the impression you just go slap him, and then it's it. I didn't think that this had to be choreographed. This has to be done right. But then it's funny. I was
Yeah.
like, lucky I make money with my face. So this is, and that's true. For an actor, it is the tool that they use. It's not such an easy
I
thing. So
remember
I
that.
think, yeah, I
Yeah,
think we
yeah.
choreographed that scene for such a long time. I was getting agitated. Okay, I just kind of want to cut out the slap now because this is taking too long.
I think,
But the point is, that is
yeah,
very important.
yeah,
That is very, very
yeah.
important. So because I saw the short film the other day, actually in Sri Lanka. It's a short film. There's a little kid on a bike, and the father's on a bike. The kid is on a bike, and the father who's driving the bike is smoking a cigarette with this toddler behind the thing, right? And
Wow.
again, you can see this is a microfilm, so they don't have the safety or whatever. They're driving through. I know it's a cool shot. It's great, but who are you risking to get that shot? It's not
Yeah,
worth
yeah,
giving cancer to that kid to make a stupid short film. It's not worth
yeah,
to get into an accident and something happens to these people to make your short film or film, whatever it is. So
yeah,
in the same way, when
yeah,
you're doing a project and when you're working with it, it's so important to, think about your crew and the cost and the safety. And then especially when you have a scene like that, if you write it, when you write it, sometimes you don't think this is so hard. Oh yeah, slap, just walks up and slaps on, yada yada, so easy. But in reality, when you have something that has any kind of physical contact, be very mindful of it. If in the script it could be a little
yeah.
handshake, it could be punch. Yeah, sorry, I'll let you speak. Sorry, buddy.
No, 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 no. It's wonder, and I had forgotten about that. I'm really encouraged because now in the industry, there are intimacy coordinators that will choreograph love scenes. because my one of the first student films I did, true story, and it was a very prestigious school. The directors basically told me and this British actress to kind of just go for it, and they didn't choreograph anything, and she was topless, and so we kind of, so I'm bottom line, I'm encouraged that now in the industry, love scenes they're choreographing, and then for a long time, theater, they call it a fight call. Like my Shakespeare play, there was this whole sword fight, and every night we would do a fight call to rehearse it. And I'm remembering now what it was, because there was a scene where Justine slaps me, which wasn't a big deal. I think I vaguely remember the day that there was an
No,
extra who was supposed to punch
yeah,
me in
it
the
was the
face.
extra who was trying
Yeah,
to punch you. I think it was just the extra. Again, the difference between a professional actor and an extra was the issue there. I think
but
he was
it
being a little
worked
bit
out.
more.
Yeah,
It worked out.
it worked out. Yeah, he was pretty aggressive, and I was a little nervous. I mean, I'm 6'1" and 200 pounds, and he was a little shorter than me, but he was just as big, and so I got nervous, and I learned something that day too, because I learned that if I am not comfortable with something, I need to just, even if you have multiple people around you, whatever's going on, just try to pull you aside and say, hey, could we maybe do this differently? And we worked through it. But that was probably my bad for not speaking up sooner and being like, hey, I'm a little nervous that this extra or background actor might, well, I don't know if he had I don't know what, he wouldn't have been background. I think he had a small line or something, so maybe it's considered an extra. But anyway, we worked through it, and I did not get a black eye or anything, and it worked out. And so, yeah, it's, dude,
No, I mean
I
it's
can imagine that as a writer, you write something, you're like, oh yeah, sure, and then it's like, okay, wait, how do we do this?
yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. So I think especially things to learn from this is that if you write maybe a tiny fight scene or a punch or a kick or whatever, or it could be,
Yeah,
it needs to be, you have to be a little bit more cautious working with it because on my mind, it didn't really feel like such a big deal. I thought this, we can fake it out,
yeah,
but then again, it didn't because especially with the way, just like you said, he was being a little too aggressive and it could have been bad, and the whole shoot would have been wasted and we'd have to go to the doctor or whatever. So, but again, like sometimes when you work with, I worked with this, on a previous short film, I worked with this name is Steven, and he's a professional stunt person. Now, this person,
yeah,
on that film, we had a little tiny sequence where he had to come in a car and just skid a little bit and do this thing and he did it like 5 takes, exactly the precision. And you can't figure out
yeah.
how do you do that. Again, the difference is I think he's a pro, and we were not being pros with it. But
Yeah,
anyway, the
but
moral
it's
of the story is
to
again
your
to
point.
teach
Oh,
anyone. Yeah,
sorry.
no, go ahead.
Oh, no, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, but I think the point to teach anyone is that if you write something on a film, it could be a tiny scene or something like that. Be mindful of it when you're directing. Or it could be grabbing someone's hand. It could be so small like that. But remember, you have to be cautious, especially with when you have any kind of physical contact. You have to be very cautious with it and doing that. For me, I had no problem with the intimacy scenes. Those were done really nicely, right? We did all that stuff very well, and everyone was happy. Now, when it comes to this slap, I couldn't,
Yeah,
it took a very long time to figure it out because it had to be shot a certain way, this way, that way.
yeah,
But anyway, I think
yeah.
we learned from it.
It's
Now,
it's
yeah,
it's oh, one thing. So to your point earlier, like you had said, and which I would agree with, I think actors always need to listen to the director. The only time where you might respectfully pull the director aside and just say, hey, is if you have a question about something, or if something for whatever reason makes you feel uncomfortable, because I would bet money that the director wants you to feel at 100%, to do your best, and they probably don't want you feeling uncomfortable. If you're nervous about the scene, that's a good uncomfortable to feel, like if if it's an intense scene that's about to happen. But bottom line, to your point earlier, 99, I mean, even I'd say 100% of the time, you have to follow the lead of the director, and you can respectfully ask a question or make the director aware if there's something that you're nervous about, but you have to, it's your job to listen to the director. So carry on. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I think that was a good thing to discuss about. I think if I think these conversations, as much as I want to promote the movie, I want someone to learn something about filmmaking or directing or acting,
Yeah.
whatever they aspire to do. So I think we made a lot of mistakes. So I think hopefully we can teach something to people that they can learn something about it. And
You're a gentleman
again,
though,
going.
like some, oh, sorry.
Oh,
some
sorry. Go ahead.
some directors, some I've pretty much had really great luck with directors. I've had a couple that were not pleasant to work with, but you as a director are a gentleman and you're very collaborative. And you want to hear, especially in the rehearsals that we would do. I mean, for all the projects I've done with you, you want to hear ideas, you want to hear creative things. And what I think is so smart that you tell your actors, and I've heard you say this multiple times, let rehearsal time is when we try out the different ideas, when we try different things, because on the shoot day, it's not that you don't care about the acting, you do very much, but you're on the shoot day, you're looking a lot at the technical side of things. And I feel like some directors are very much focused on the acting, some are very much focused on the special effects or technical, and you're doing both. And what you instruct us as your cast to do is, during the rehearsal, that's when we want to try different things and just kind of see what flows. If you have ideas, I want to hear it. But then on the shoot day, we're there to work and get things done. And so I like how you do that, because it's well, I just like having rehearsals. But you're
No,
doing
I hear
both,
you
which I think
absolutely.
is fantastic
Another reason
personally.
is if you have some ideas, you have some input. It's really helpful to have it. I know some directors don't like it. They want their word to word read on the script. They don't like any changes made, whatever. But for me, I like when people have. I like to get their ideas. I don't want it to just be my film. And also, I think I'm pretty
Yeah.
very dumb. I actually make this happen because of you guys. It's just about figuring out the right
No.
people to hire, and then you pick their brain and you make something, and that's it. But and then the only thing
But
I would
you're very
disagree on.
collaborative. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead. Sorry.
no, absolutely. So I think the only thing I would disagree for an actor to do is that if we have 5 rehearsal days and we would talk about the film and we've done all these things, don't come to the set and right before, once we set up the lights, everything's good, we've right when we do the take, don't come and say, hey, you know what? I don't think my character would do that. You know, Especially on independent film,
How to piss
because
off the director 101. That's exactly how
yeah,
you piss off the director.
exactly. If that was a conversation that should have been happening in the trailer or before or whatever, like
Way
maybe
back.
because
Way back.
way back, because once we set up the shot, everything's lit, everything's done. Especially on independent film, we don't have the luxury of what. Let's talk about it.
People are waiting on you. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. You remember when we were shooting, there was one day we were going overtime, and this 1 hour we were we couldn't afford this 1 hour of overtime, and then it was like Nick was like, you have to cut it. I think it was like, I don't know, 11 o'clock at night or something, no, midnight. I think it was really late. This is it. You cannot go a minute later. That's it. This is it.
Yeah.
And then for me, I did it, but then I think I told you to do something for like 30 seconds, like, no, go there, I'm going to take a real quick shot. And I didn't cut that shot, and I jumped to another shot because I really needed that shot, right? But, and then Nick was so mad, like, no, you can't, you can't. And I mean, I got the shot, but that cost us overtime, you know? But that was,
I want to say there was one. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, yeah. So this is one of those days, a very important scene. You were there. Justin was in that scene. It was a shot of, I think. Anyway, long story short, yeah. The thing is, that was, you know, it is like that independent film, right? That tiny shot costed
Yeah,
overtime, and now it was, it happened. But on an independent film, you really really don't have much time to do that things, especially on set, right? So if you wanted to have that conversation
yeah,
before anyone wanted to talk about it, that's great. Especially talk to your director before, and then figure these things out about the way your characters feel or whatever, in these things. But on the day of, not that you cannot have these conversations, it's very important to have it. but not right before you go call action or middle of the take, right? Because that doesn't really help
Yeah.
help anyone, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, and I feel like I've worked with you enough that I know that on the shoot days, especially just to give you space because there might be lighting things going on, camera things going on, producer level things going on. And besides, I kind of just personally kind of want to stay in my zone and make sure I'm prepared and, ready. And when you talked earlier about the Hitchcock scene, I had memorized the whole screenplay, I had it all together, but before we would shoot every scene, I'd whip out that particular scene, just brush up, make sure. And I heard one time Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep were talking about how, what it's like for the A-listers when they show up on set and they're working with someone famous, and they were saying, the first couple of days you're kind of in awe and starstruck at the other person, but then once that wears off, the pros, Tom Hanks said, they all do the same thing. They're just, running lines, making sure they're prepared. And so the Hitchcock take, I remember really vividly being at the bottom of the stairs with Justine, just running things back and forth. And then when we got up there, we were ready to go. And but I try to stay away from you on during the shoots because I know you've got more important things to do. And if you want to tell me something, you will tell me. But I mean, for folks watching that might not realize this, sometimes there could be 45 minutes in between a scene if the lighting is changing, the camera angle. So there's a lot of technical stuff that doesn't even concern the actors, and it's not our job. And so it's probably best for us to just step aside and let everyone else, figure things out because we're not the experts on lighting or camera angles, or it doesn't concern us. That's why the crew is there and they're wonderful.
Yeah, and real quick, I think there were 2 days that Lal was on set, who was looking at
Yeah.
what's going on and sort of looking through the monitor per se. And I think he purposely showed up on the day that we were shooting the scene with you and Justine, and then he was in the room, and it was for me it was interesting because the other crew members have been on the set, but I haven't seen you know um anyone else reacting to the footage, so and also I don't like producer
Oh,
showing up on set, that's weird. So like, why is these producers are there, they're not they and then looking
get
over the
out of my
monitor. I
way.
hate it. Get out of my, even on a commercial shoot, I hate it, because like that's why
Yeah.
you usually give them a different monitor and put them to the side. You don't let them see the director's monitor because it feels so
Yeah.
overbearing when someone's like, you know and that's
Yeah.
again another tip. If you had a set, there are two different monitors, and directors looking at one. If you have the choice to look at the other monitor, go peek at the other monitor. Don't, because the director's monitor, it's his thing, it's his space. Let him have it. Just go look at the other
Yeah.
monitor. But
Yeah.
anyway, going back to Lal's
Yeah.
situation, was that it was interesting to see. I think he was there with another friend, and the other guy had no idea about the movie. What's happening was whatever, right? He was just looking at the monitor, and it was interesting to see the way they react to the footage from a director's point of view, because I think we had the door closed, he didn't see us,
Wow.
everything was going on. It was so cool, right?
Yeah.
And I
Wow.
think it's one of those things to have, and I think they
I
really
didn't know
enjoyed
that.
seeing it.
Wow. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, they were
Oh,
there,
wow.
and that was really cool. I thought that was really cool to get their reaction and see how they enjoyed the movie. At that point.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah. And let me ask you a question real quick. So, what do you think about the cast? You work with a lot of actors in this film, right? Um, what are the tips you could give anyone when they work with actors, or other actors when you have on set? What are some of the tips you would be able to give?
Oh man, that's a great question. I would say, okay, so tips for working with other actors. Um, you know, actors can be kind of, weird animals in their own right. And I've heard stories where some actors show up and they're in character from the moment they step on set to the moment they leave. So you can't really introduce yourself or say hello. Some actors just don't want to be bothered. For me, I like to always at least try to introduce myself and say hello. And then in general, I kind of like to give everybody space, and I'll be taking my time to prepare. Um, and let's see, as far as it's always nice. Look, some actors, they want to run the lines a couple times before you shoot the scene, just to get comfortable with each other. And some actors don't. They want it to be completely fresh and nothing rehearsed at all. And so I don't know. I tend to defer to my cast in whatever project I'm doing. I kind of try to be accommodating and flexible to my scene partner or to the other members of the cast, or just each actor kind of has their own approach, and I think it's wise to just be sensitive to that. And because personally, I want everybody to do their best work, and I have my approach that works for me. But even like on our film, um, you know, for example, Melissa had one approach where, and she told me one day, she said, you know what, I'm just going to stay in character. It's easier to stay in this zone. And so I just gave her a lot of space that day. And Justine was always really just eager and fun and ready to go, and running lines a lot. And then, Rachel, if I remember, kind of came in, and if I remember, I don't think she even needed to brush up on lines. I think she was just ready to go. So to answer your question, I try to just be
I think every actor on set, at
accommodating.
least on this film, was absolutely on point with the lines. It's not even a question of
Yeah,
a word or two. They were all had it
yeah.
memorized. Even some points, you guys would say things like, "Hey, like you in this scene, that happens, this is that," and I had no clue. I had to refer back to the script and
We,
say, "Wait a minute, what are you guys talking about? What
yeah,
scene? What's going on?" Because you had it in your
yeah.
brain stuck in. For me, it's not like that. I'm not that smart. For me, oh wait, what scene? Hold on, what? Yeah, you guys are on point with that.
Another thing, so for people maybe who aren't familiar with the process, a lot of times once I know my lines, a lot of times I know the other person's line too, and vice versa. So, Rachel knew my lines, I knew hers. I had a lot of scenes with Rachel,
John,
and so I think that's another
how many
thing you'll
times did I
find.
ask you, John? What's the line again? What's the next line? What's the next scene? How many times did I ask you? Honest answer. How many times did I ask you? So many, right?
Wait, you
I'm
were
not even
asking
even kidding.
what?
Yeah. How many
Asking
times
you
did I
asked me
ask
what?
you for
Like
this
what the
scene?
next scene is?
Yeah.
Um, I think I think a lot. I don't remember
Yeah, yeah.
the exact
Exactly.
number.
Yeah, that's like I
Um,
said, like you guys remember the
the
scene and the
C
script.
number.
It's you guys memorize it like and had everything in your head. I didn't have to look, like I would have asked John, what's the next scene? And you would come up, Rachel, what's the next scene? I don't think the director or scriptwriter should be that way, but that's how it was on our set. You guys knew the script better than I did.
But it's really a side note. It's a gift to have the writer on set. Some of the short films I did, in fact, two that I remember pretty well, the writer was on set, and it's so wonderful when the writer or writers are on set, because if you have a question about something, you can just ask them. You don't need to brainstorm options, and so it was great having you not only as the director but as the writer on set. And I think in fairness to you, a director has a lot going on, and so if I'm sure you still know the script backwards and forwards, but on the shoot days, you have so many people constantly, needing things from you, and you're having to approve, the lights and the camera angles and all that. So you probably just had a lot of other things happening. I still think you probably knew it well.
I hope so too. I hope I I know the script. But
And if not, you do now because you've had to edit it and
yeah,
you've watched many
exactly.
iterations of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think even, on the editing, we like the editor we had, it was Lahiru, and who I think he had the script memorized too, and later on he would talk to me about the same
Yeah.
thing. And I think that shows a lot about choosing the right people on a gig. Right after that, the director actually doesn't have to do much. He just had to pick the right people and then sort of, take credit for everything. But
And I'll
that's how it
say
works. But
one, oh, sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, now I've been, let's see. So I've been with you on several projects, and you've included me on some of the casting in them. And for actors out there who would like to work with you in the future, here's what I would recommend now that I've worked with you a few times. I'd say that you're not only looking for people who have a talent that you appreciate, but you also want people who are just good people. and who have class. Like I would
Absolutely.
say, the I every project of yours I've done, that group, whether it's Rideshare Chronicles or the short film or Free by Noon, like everybody feels like family, and I hope that I don't know if that will be the case with other projects that I do, but I think you want to take care of people, and you want people to feel heard, and you don't want one bad apple ruining the whole cast or the whole crew or the and I've seen in auditions where an actor or actress comes in, they do a read and you love what they do, and then you want to see if they can take direction, and so you kind of work with them a little bit. And so that would be another tip for maybe some of the actors that want to work with you, is that if you love the first take, that's a great sign, but you also want to make sure that the people you work with are gonna be responsive to your vision and gonna
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
take
think that was a very
direction,
good
which
tip. Thank you. I'm gonna save that tip and show it to every new actor that I hire. Like, look at this. This is what I'm looking for. I'm gonna put it on the casting thing. Hey, if this is not you, if you're not a good apple, don't apply. If you're not this, then this is.
well,
So
and
that's so true. That is very true.
you know
And I think I'm glad you noticed
with
that.
pre-buy, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so glad you noticed that
I'm
because
so sorry.
you know. No, go ahead.
So, and for anyone watching, if you with doing all this electronic, communication over the pandemic, in person, Lucky and I never interrupt each other. It's just over this. It's we like, oh wait, are you?
Yeah,
So that's what's going on here.
yeah.
And
No,
we're not
no.
rude
There's
people,
a true
neither one of us.
comfort.
We just,
No, no,
yeah.
no. Absolutely, John is one of
But
the nicest people you ever meet. He's so respectful, and he's such a sweetheart to work with on project, and he kept the whole thing going. And then, and I think that's very fortunate in every project that especially with Free by Noon, we were able to have really good people on set. Otherwise, we wouldn't have survived for 7 days in that tiny house. You know what I mean?
no.
With
And
we
you,
could have killed each other.
what I was going to say was that even from the beginning, the early stages of casting Free by Noon, you had a lot of us involved with that. I remember there was a big audition one day where we had, I think, something like 60 people came through. It might have even been more than that. And then I remember at the very end, like laying out all the headshots, and you actually were asking our opinions on things. Like we were there to help as readers, we were there to help you and serve you, but and just be supportive. But you actually wanted our opinions on things, which was again very, in my experience, limited experience, very rare, and speaks to your collaborative approach. And yeah, so it's yeah,
That's
you
great.
pick people that
Yeah,
I enjoy working
I
with,
don't think
and
we
I enjoy working with
figured it
you.
out. Yeah, absolutely. No, I don't think we realized it. We were talking for 1.5 hours, so I think it's time to end this stream because it was 1.5 hours of us two talking. I hope people are able to learn something. Let me go ahead and look at the chat real quick. We got some congratulations. There was some very interesting comments. And there was this one comment from Gayatri. I think I'm going to read that. It's Gayatri Rasik Goller. She said, personally, feel that it's such a motivation when the director doesn't micromanage and over direct too, rather to share notes when and where necessary is a more sound approach. Of course, given the requirement, this could change, but generally, that is a good way to go about it. And I'm glad she feels that way, because that is the way I feel too. I don't want to over direct people. I don't want to show out that I'm the director because it's on the title, so I am the director. I don't need to prove that on the set. But it's really about having the right people and trusting them. It's a big part to trust your script with the actors, and that's why you need to meet them before, you need to
Yeah,
prep them before, you need to talk to them before, and then once you have that relationship, just trust them to do their job and don't micromanage them and don't go around, you know, trying to prove that a point. So just let them do their work,
yeah,
and they'll do magic for you. Anyway, so I think that with that, I think we had a good conversation, right? I think we had a good stream.
yeah. I agree. The
I hope
only
you
the
had
only
fun.
thing I wanted to share, the only
Sure.
thing I wanted to share, and I just remembered this. The way that you recruited me to play this part, I thought was hilarious because you, as I recall, you called me up one night, and I was living in Culver City at that time, and you said, "Hey, let's have dinner. I want to run something by you." And so we met at a restaurant not too far from
Was
where
it
I lived. You
BJ's?
came to my part of town, which was, say what?
Was it BJ's?
Say that. Yes, yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
So,
I remember. I
so
remember. Yeah.
we get there, and Lucky tells the hostess, he's like, "I want you to seat us away from everybody." And so she did. It's a huge restaurant. She sat us in this corner, this booth, kind of in the middle, but to the side. And I was like, "Man, what does he want to talk about?" And true story, the way he pitched this part to me was he had me sign a non-disclosure agreement, which I was happy to, obviously. And then he had a 12-page treatment that I think he pulled out of a file or a briefcase or something. And so, true story, he had you you had me read the entire 12-page treatment out loud because you were watching my reactions. He's clever, folks. He wanted to see my reactions to each of the scenes. And I remember thinking, 6 pages in, true story, dude. I remember thinking like, oh gosh, this is so heavy. I hope I can do this. Like, this will be a challenge, and I love that. But I hope I can do this. And then page 6 was when it kind of turned into the other, some of the comedic elements. I thought, okay, all right, it's I could do this. I could do this. But I thought that was so funny that, we get a table so that no one can hear. I sign the non-disclosure. I read it out loud, and you're measuring my reactions. And it was brilliant. And of course, I said yes. I said absolutely, yeah, I would do this. And so and that's where my involvement began.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love because for me at the end of the day, even on the movie, for me it's I love seeing the reaction from people on how they're gonna react to it, or
Yeah,
whether it worked out or not. I think that's what really gets me going. Not the ticket sales or the reviews or whatnot. If certain things we've done have worked, people will react to it, and I love how even in Sri Lanka when we screened the movie just to sneak into the theater and look back at the people who are watching it. Even when we did the test screening in Sri Lanka, I asked someone to go in and just film the audience. Let's see how they react.
yeah,
What are they gonna find funny or interesting or whatnot. And with that, I think we should end this stream. But thank you for those
sure.
who watch. If you have any questions, let us know. Again, this was a very like abrupt idea of us spending the Friday night. We just wanted to
Stay
do it, and I think it was
flexible,
good.
folks.
We had
Yep.
a good conversation, and I'm glad to always talk to you. But we will continue this conversation later on towards the premiere and the screening date, and we'll sort of try to talk more about it. But for now, all I wanted to say is just make sure to mark your calendar. We are going to be in theaters in October. October. Did I say right? Just want to
October.
make sure
Yeah.
because my
Yes, you
old
did.
school, my old English teacher from high school is mad because on the previous video I said October and not October. So I hope I said it right.
Look,
So let
anyone
me,
who knows
yes.
multiple languages should be applauded, okay? I know 3 of them, and I get my French, German and Spanish mixed up, and English is my main language. But hey, and you speak 2 languages pretty fluently, so that's much better than I do. So hey, you should be applauded.
No worries. Thank you, man. I think I ran out of batteries on my AirPods too, so that is a call. Like, hey,
Okay.
stop talking. You guys gotta go. So anyway,
Okay.
so thank you so much, everyone, for watching, and thanks, John, for joining us. It was such a great having you. I think we had such an awesome
Anytime.
conversation, and it was so much fun. And hopefully, we'll catch you guys soon. All right. Thank you. Have a good night and have
All
a
right.
good day.
Good
And
night,
all that.
everybody.
See you. Thanks, John. See ya.
Thank you.